After 38 years of marriage, my wife abandoned me in a casino parking lot in Niagara Falls with no wallet, no phone, and no way home. I was standing there in the freezing October rain, watching her taillights disappear, when an elderly man with a cane and an eye patch walked up to me and said, "Son, I heard everything. My driver will be here in 3 minutes. Pretend you're with me. That woman is about to realize she just left her husband standing next to one of the wealthiest property developers in the Great Lakes region." I know it sounds like something out of a movie, but I swear on my mother's grave, every word is the absolute truth. My name is David Cooper. I'm 74 years old now, and what happened 11 years ago changed everything I thought I knew about loyalty, family, and what it means to be truly valued. I was 62 then, married to Linda for 38 years. We met when I was 24, working as an apprentice mechanic in Akron, Ohio. She was 19, bringing me coffee from the Dunkin' Donuts next door. We got married 6 months later. Too fast, everyone said, but I loved her. We never had children, not for lack of trying. The tests, the treatments, the monthly disappointments. Eventually, we stopped. Linda said it was fine, that we had each other, but I always saw something in her eyes when she looked at other people's kids. I worked hard my entire life. Opened my own place eventually, Cooper's Auto Repair. Nothing fancy, just honest work. I'd come home with grease under my nails, but I made sure Linda had what she needed. We had a modest house, took modest vacations. We lived a modest life. But somewhere along the way, modest stopped being enough for Linda. It started maybe 5 years ago. Little comments. The Hendersons just bought a place up in Sandusky. Wouldn't that be lovely? When are we going to actually do something with our lives? Then about 2 years ago, 2 things happened. First, my doctor told me I had type 2 diabetes. Nothing life-threatening if I managed it. But it was a wake-up call. The stress, the long hours, it had all caught up with me. Second, Linda started dressing differently. Nicer clothes, expensive salons, always on her phone, smiling at messages she never shared. I knew something was wrong, but I was too afraid to confront it. That October weekend, Linda suggested Niagara Falls. For our anniversary, she said, though it wasn't for another month. I thought maybe this was a chance to fix things. We drove up Friday, checked into a hotel near the falls. It should have been romantic, but Linda was distracted the entire time, barely spoke during dinner, went straight to bed, turning away from me. Saturday morning, she suggested the casino, Seneca Niagara. She'd never been into gambling, but she insisted. So we went. I played slots, lost $20, decided I was done. Linda said she wanted to try blackjack. I said I'd wait at the bar. 2 hours passed. I texted, no response. I walked around looking for her. I found her at a table, but she wasn't alone. A man sat next to her, tall, well-dressed, gray hair slicked back, expensive watch. They were laughing. His hand was on her knee. I walked up. "Linda, can we talk?" She looked at me like I was interrupting something important. "Dave, not now. I'm in the middle of a game." "Who's this?" I asked. He smiled, the kind of smile that said he knew exactly what was going on. "Marcus Dalton. Friends call me Mark, and you must be the husband." The way he said the husband, like I was some inconvenient detail. "Linda, what's going on?" She sighed, annoyed. "Dave, can you just go wait in the lobby or something?" "I'd like to talk to you now." "Well, I don't want to talk to you now." Her voice was sharp. The dealer and other players were staring. "You're embarrassing me." "I'm embarrassing you?" "Yes, Dave, you are. With your grease-stained shirts and your cheap shoes and your complete inability to provide anything beyond the bare minimum." The words hit like a physical blow. Marcus just kept smiling. "Let's go outside," I said quietly. "Fine." She threw her cards down, grabbed her purse, stormed toward the exit. I followed through the casino, through the lobby, out into the parking lot. It was starting to rain. Cold October rain. "What is this, Linda?" She turned to face me, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Not anger, contempt, pure, cold contempt. "What's going on, Dave, is that I'm done." "Done with what?" "Done with you. Done with this pathetic excuse for a life you've given me. Done pretending I'm happy living in that tiny house, driving that embarrassing car, being married to a man who smells like motor oil and has nothing to show for 40 years of work. 38 years, Linda. 38 years I'll never get back." She opened her purse and pulled out my wallet. I didn't even realize she'd taken it. "You know what? I was going to wait until we got home, but I can't stand another minute." She opened my wallet, took out the cash, about $60, and put it in her purse. Then my credit card, debit card, driver's license. She held them for a moment, then put them in her purse too. "Linda, give those back." "No." She pulled out her phone. "You can find your own way home. Marcus has offered to drive me back. We're going to stop by the house. I'm going to pack my things, and by the time you drag yourself back, I'll be gone." "You're leaving me for him?" "I'm leaving you for anyone who isn't you. Marcus owns 3 car dealerships in Cleveland. He has a house in Shaker Heights. He knows how to treat a woman properly." "Linda, please. Don't beg. It's pathetic. You're pathetic. You've always been pathetic. I wasted the best years of my life on you, and I'm not wasting another second." She pulled out our car keys, the 15-year-old Honda Civic. "How am I supposed to get home?" "I don't care. Walk, hitchhike, call someone." "Oh, wait, you can't." She pulled my phone from her coat pocket. "Goodbye, Dave. My lawyer will be in contact." She walked to the car. I stood frozen, unable to process what was happening. She got in, started the engine, drove away. I watched the red taillights disappear. I was alone. No wallet, no phone, no identification, no money, no way home. It was raining harder. I was 62 years old, and my wife of 38 years had just thrown me away like garbage. I don't know how long I stood there. The ground had opened beneath me. Everything I'd built my life on had been revealed as a lie. "Excuse me, son." I turned. An elderly man stood a few feet away, leaning on a polished wooden cane. Tall, thin, wearing an expensive wool coat, white hair neatly combed, and a black eye patch over his left eye. The other eye, sharp and blue, looked at me with concern. "I'm sorry," I said, wiping rain from my face. "Were you talking to me?" "I was. I'm afraid I overheard your conversation." That woman had quite the carrying voice. "I'm sorry you had to hear that." "Don't apologize. I'm sorry you had to experience it." He paused. "I'm Robert Harrison. Most people call me Bob. Dave Cooper." "Well, Dave, I have a proposition for you. I know it's going to sound strange, but hear me out." I just stared at him. I was cold, wet, and completely broken. "My driver will be here in a few minutes. When he arrives, I want you to pretend to be my son. Just go along with it. Don't ask questions. I don't understand. That woman, your wife, hasn't left yet. I saw her pull around to the front entrance. She's waiting for someone, probably this Marcus fellow. When my car pulls up, when you get in with me, she's going to see it. She's going to realize she made a terrible mistake." "Why would you do this for me?" Bob smiled sadly. "Because 20 years ago, I was standing in a hospital parking lot, and my son told me he never wanted to see me again. He said I'd been a terrible father, that I'd chosen work over family, that he was done with me. 3 months later, he died in a car accident. I never got to apologize. I never got to tell him I loved him. He looked at me with that one good eye, and I saw decades of regret. I can't get my son back, Dave, but I can help you, and maybe I can finally do something right." Before I could respond, a black Mercedes S-Class pulled into the parking lot, sleek and gleaming in the rain. The driver got out with an umbrella. "Mr. Harrison, sir, sorry for the delay." "Not a problem. I'd like you to meet my son, David." The driver looked surprised but quickly shifted to professional neutrality. "A pleasure, sir." "Help me to the car, son," Bob said, taking my arm. "These old bones don't work as well as they used to." I helped him to the Mercedes. The interior was cream leather, spotless, with a faint smell of expensive cologne. As the driver closed the door, I looked out the window. There she was, Linda, standing under the casino awning with Marcus, both staring at us. At the Mercedes. At me, sitting next to an obviously wealthy man being treated with respect. Linda's face went pale, her mouth opened slightly. Marcus said something, but she didn't seem to hear. She was staring with an expression I'd never seen before. Shock, confusion, regret. Bob noticed where I was looking. "Wave to her, son." I lifted my hand. Small wave. Linda stood frozen. The engine started, and we pulled away smoothly, leaving Linda and Marcus in the rain. We drove in silence toward Ohio. The rain drummed on the roof. Bob sat beside me, giving me time to process. "Why did you do that?" I finally asked. "I told you. I saw myself in you. A man who gave everything and got nothing in return. But you don't know anything about me. I know enough. I know that woman treated you like garbage. I know she took everything and left you stranded. I know you're a good man, because a bad man would have responded with violence. You responded with dignity." We drove in silence for a while. "Where are we going?" "My home, Traverse City, Michigan, on the water. About 6 hours from here. I think you could use a warm meal, dry clothes, and a place to think." "I can't impose." "You're not imposing. Besides, that house is too large for one old man." Bob turned to look at me. "Let's get to know each other. I'll tell you my story, you tell me yours, and we'll see if we can help each other." So I told him. Everything. Meeting Linda at 19, 38 years of marriage, never having children, working myself to the bone, the shop, the modest life, the diabetes diagnosis, the slow realization she was pulling away. Standing in that parking lot feeling like my entire life had been a waste. Bob listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet. "Dave, I'm going to tell you something that's going to sound crazy, but I want you to seriously consider it. Okay? I want you to be my son. Not pretend. Actually, legally, become my son." I stared at him. "What? I'm 75 years old. I built a real estate business over 40 years, commercial properties across the Midwest, worth about $45 million. My wife died 12 years ago from cancer. My son Michael died 20 years ago. I have no other children, no siblings, no real family." He paused. "Adult adoption is perfectly legal in Ohio and Michigan. All it requires is consent from both parties and a judge's approval. I have excellent lawyers." "Why would you want to do this?" "Because I'm tired of being alone, Dave. Because I see in you something I never saw in the business partners who surround me. Honesty, integrity, humility. You're a man who worked his whole life and never complained. A man who loved his wife even when she didn't deserve it. That's the kind of man I want to call my son." He let that sink in. "This is insane. Perhaps. But consider this. You have nothing to go back to. Your wife is leaving you. You'll fight for half of a house worth what? 200,000? You'll go back to your shop, work until you're too old, retire on Social Security and whatever meager savings you have." He paused. "Or you say yes to me. You become my son. You learn about my businesses. You live in comfort. And when I die, which won't be long now, I've been diagnosed with early-stage Parkinson's. You inherit everything. You'll never have to worry about money again. And that woman will spend the rest of her life regretting what she did." I sat there, mind reeling. This couldn't be real. I need time to think. Of course. For now, let's just get you somewhere warm and dry. And we arrived at Bob's house just after midnight. Estate was a better word. On East Grand Traverse Bay, surrounded by tall pines. Cedar and stone with huge windows glowing with light. Other buildings scattered around. A boathouse, guest cottage, a workshop. A woman in her 50s came out to greet us. "Mr. Harrison, welcome home. I wasn't expecting you until tomorrow." "Change of plans, Helen. This is David Cooper. He'll be staying with us. Can you please prepare the blue guest room and have something warm ready?" Helen looked at me with curiosity but asked no questions. "Of course, sir." The interior was stunning. Hardwood floors, stone fireplaces, cathedral ceilings, art on the walls, comfortable leather furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay. "Come," Bob said. "Let's sit by the fire." Helen brought tea and sandwiches. I hadn't realized how hungry I was. Bob watched me with that calm, assessing gaze. "Tell me, Dave, what do you want out of life?" "I don't know anymore. I thought I wanted a happy marriage, a simple life, to be appreciated for who I am." "Do you think you'll get that if you go back to your old life?" "No." "Then why not try something different?" "Because this feels like a dream." Bob smiled. "It's not a dream, Dave. It's an opportunity. The question is whether you're brave enough to take it." I stayed up most of that night in the most comfortable bed I'd ever experienced, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Linda, about 38 years, about Bob's offer. The next morning, I found Bob in his study, a massive room lined with bookshelves, dominated by a huge oak desk. He was reading the Sunday paper, coffee at his elbow. "Sleep well?" "Not really." "Understandable. Have you thought about my offer?" I sat down. "I have questions." "Ask them." "What do you get out of this?" "Really?" "Peace. The knowledge that my life's work will go to someone who deserves it. And companionship. I'm tired of being alone, Dave. Tired of having no one to talk to. No one who cares whether I live or die beyond what they might inherit. You said your son died 20 years ago. What happened?" Bob's expression darkened. "We had a fight. About the business, about my priorities. Michael said I cared more about money than about family. He was right. I'd spent his entire childhood working, building the company. Missed his hockey games, his graduations, his wedding. Always too busy." He paused, voice thick. "One day he'd had enough. Told me he never wanted to see me again, that I wasn't his father anymore. And I was too proud to apologize. 3 months later, a drunk driver crossed the center line. Killed him instantly. He was 35. I'm so sorry. So am I. Every single day. I'd give every dollar to go back and do it differently. But I can't. All I can do is try to do better now." We sat in silence. "If I say yes," I said carefully, "what happens?" "First, we call my lawyers and start the adoption process. It will take several months, probably 8, given that your wife will likely contest it. In the meantime, you'll live here. I'll teach you about the business. You'll meet my key people, learn how everything works. We'll also deal with your soon-to-be ex-wife. I'll hire you the best family lawyers in Ohio. They'll make sure she doesn't get a cent more than she's legally entitled to. She'll fight it. Let her fight. You have me now. And I promise you, Dave, no one fights me and wins." I took a deep breath. Thought about going back to my empty house, my failing shop, my lonely life. Thought about Linda with Marcus. Yes. Yes what? Yes, Dad. I accept. Bob's face transformed. He smiled, his one good eye glistening. Thank you, son. You've just made an old man very happy. The next 2 weeks were a blur. Bob's lawyers, sharp professionals from Cleveland, started the adoption paperwork immediately. They also started divorce proceedings against Linda. citing abandonment and emotional cruelty. Linda called my old number dozens of times, but Bob got me a new phone. Only Bob, Helen, and the lawyers had it. Bob introduced me to his inner circle, his CFO, property managers, investment advisors. Some were surprised, others openly skeptical, but Bob was firm. "This is David. He's my son, and he will be taking over when I retire. Treat him accordingly." I spent my days learning. Bob had files on every property, every investment, every decision he'd made for 40 years. He explained everything patiently, but it wasn't easy. The first 2 years were brutal. Financial statements, cap rates, debt service ratios, a foreign language. I'd stare at spreadsheets until my eyes blurred, trying to understand why a building worth $2 million only generated $80,000 in annual income. Bob was patient, but he wasn't soft. When I botched a tenant negotiation in year 3, caving on terms that cost us $200,000, he let me have it. "Dave, this isn't charity," he said, voice cold. "If you're going to run this company, you need to understand that kindness and weakness aren't the same thing. You can be fair without being a pushover." It stung. For a moment, I heard Linda's voice. Pathetic, always pathetic. But Bob wasn't Linda. The next morning, he sat me down and walked through the negotiation again, showing me where I'd gone wrong. "I'm not angry because you failed," he said. "I'm angry because you didn't trust yourself. You're smarter than you think, Dave. Start acting like it." By year 5, I could hold my own in meetings. By year 7, I was making decisions Bob trusted. Evenings, we'd have dinner together. Helen was an excellent cook. We'd talk about everything. Books, politics, the lake. Simple things, conversations I'd never had with Linda. "You know what I've realized?" I said one night. "What's that?" "I was lonely in my marriage, more lonely than I've been in my entire life. And now, I don't feel alone." Bob reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Neither do I, son." But of course, it couldn't stay peaceful. 3 weeks after I'd moved in, the doorbell rang during breakfast. Helen answered and came back troubled. "Mr. Harrison, there's a woman claiming to be David's wife. She's demanding to see him." Bob and I exchanged glances. "Show her into the sitting room. We'll be there shortly." We finished our coffee, taking our time. Let her wait. Linda was standing by the window when we entered, looking out at the bay. Dressed carefully, nice dress, heels, makeup, perfect. She turned, and I saw calculation in her eyes. "Dave, thank God. I've been so worried." "Have you, Linda?" "Of course. When you didn't come home, I thought something terrible had happened. And then my lawyer told me you'd filed for divorce. What's going on?" Bob stepped forward. "Mrs. Cooper, I'm Robert Harrison. I believe you saw me briefly in Niagara Falls." Linda's eyes widened. "Mr. Harrison, yes, you're the property developer. I've read about you. Then you know I don't tolerate games. So let's skip the performance. You didn't come because you were worried. You came because you realized you made a mistake. You saw him get into my car, and you've spent 3 weeks wondering if maybe you threw away something valuable." Linda's face flushed. "That's not true." "Isn't it?" "Dave told me everything, Mrs. Cooper. About your affair with Mr. Dalton, about how you abandoned him with no money, no phone, no way home. We had a fight, couples fight. It meant something to Dave. It meant he finally saw you for who you really are." Linda's eyes flicked to me, desperate. "Dave, please. We can fix this. 38 years, you can't just throw that away." "You threw it away, Linda, the night you left me in the rain. I was angry. I said things I didn't mean. But I love you." "No, you don't. You loved what I could give you. When that wasn't enough, you went looking for someone who could give you more. That's not fair." "Fair?" Anger rose in me. I worked every single day for 38 years to give you a decent life. I never cheated, never lied, never made you feel small, and you repaid me by humiliating me in public, stealing my belongings, and abandoning me, and now you have the nerve to tell me you love me. Dave, please. No, I'm done, Linda. Sign the divorce papers. Take what the law says you're entitled to. I'm moving on. With him? She looked at Bob with contempt. You're going to be this old man's charity case? Bob smiled coldly. I'm not his charity case, Mrs. Cooper. I'm his father. I'm adopting David, legally. He's going to be my son and my heir. Everything I have will be his when I'm gone. Linda went pale. You're joking. I assure you I'm not. Dave, you can't be serious. You're 62 years old. Actually, I can. The paperwork is in progress. I could see her mind calculating. How much is he worth? None of your business anymore. It is if you're hiding assets. Your lawyer will do nothing, Bob interrupted. Because everything Dave inherits comes after your divorce is finalized. You have no legal claim. My lawyers have made certain of that. Linda stared, face a mask of rage. This is insane. You're both insane. Perhaps, I said quietly, but at least we're honest about who we are. Can you say the same? She stormed toward the door, stopped, looked back. You're going to regret this. The only regret I have is that I didn't see who you really were 38 years ago. She left, slamming the door. Bob put his hand on my shoulder. That was harder than you expected. Yes, but necessary. She needed to understand you're not her victim anymore. Over the next 8 months, Linda fought exactly as Bob predicted. She hired aggressive lawyers, claimed I'd been hiding assets, alleged I'd abandoned her, tried to get the adoption blocked, claiming Bob was mentally unfit and I was manipulating him. And then there was my brother Stephen. Stephen and I hadn't spoken in 5 years. When our parents died, they'd left me the family home and him the cottage. The home was worth more. Stephen never forgave me, even though it was our parents' decision. He filed to contest the adoption, claiming Bob was being unduly influenced, that I was a con artist, and that as my closest living relative, he had a right to intervene. Bob's lawyers were better. They had witnesses from the casino who'd seen everything. Documentation of Linda's affair with Marcus. Testimony from Marcus's ex-wife about how he'd done the same to her, promised the world, then left her with nothing when his dealership started struggling. They had Bob's medical records showing he was perfectly sound mentally, despite the Parkinson's, and they had letters, dozens of them, from former employees at my shop, from neighbors, from customers, all testifying to my character. You did this? I asked Bob one evening, looking through the letters. I made some calls, asked people who knew you to write what they remembered. Turns out, you touched more lives than you realized. The courthouse was in Cleveland. Cold March morning. Linda was there with her lawyer, Stephen with his. Marcus was notably absent. He and Linda had parted ways 3 months earlier, once she realized his financial problems were real. The judge listened to all sides. Linda's lawyer argued I was a manipulator. Stephen's lawyer argued Bob was being taken advantage of. Bob's attorney, Patricia Chen, calmly presented evidence of my character, the letters, testimony from Bob's doctors. Then she called Bob to the stand. Mr. Harrison, can you tell the court why you've chosen to adopt David Cooper? Bob sat straight, voice clear, despite the tremor in his hands from the Parkinson's. Because for 20 years, I've lived with regret over losing my son. Not to death initially, but to my own pride. When I met David in that parking lot, I saw a man who'd made all the opposite choices. Put family first, worked honestly, stayed loyal even when it wasn't deserved. He needed a father. I needed a son. If that's not what family is supposed to be, I don't know what is. But he's 62 years old, the judge said. Isn't this unusual? Unusual, perhaps, but who says family has to follow conventional rules? David may be 62, but he needed a father, and I needed a son. We found each other when we both needed it most. The judge looked at me. Mr. Cooper, is this your wish as well? I stood. Yes, Your Honor. Bob has shown me more love and respect in 8 months than I received in 38 years of marriage. He's taught me, guided me, and made me feel valued for the first time in my life. I'd be honored to be his son. The judge removed his glasses. Mrs. Cooper, Mr. Stephen Cooper, I've reviewed all the evidence. I find 2 adults who have freely chosen to form a family in an unconventional but entirely legal manner. Mrs. Cooper, you'll receive your equitable share of marital assets, but you have no claim to any future inheritance. Mr. Stephen Cooper, your motion is denied. He signed the papers. Adoption granted. Mr. David Cooper, you are now legally the son and heir of Mr. Robert Harrison. Congratulations to you both. I turned to Bob. He was crying. I was crying. We embraced while Linda and Stephen watched with identical expressions of fury and disbelief. On that night, we celebrated. Helen made a feast: prime rib, roasted vegetables, chocolate cake. Bob opened champagne that had been waiting 30 years. Bob raised his glass. To my son, may you always remember that family isn't about blood. It's about choosing each other every single day. To my father, I replied, thank you for seeing value in me when I couldn't see it in myself. We clinked glasses, and I felt, for the first time in longer than I could remember, completely at peace. Stephen's lawsuit was dismissed in June, but he appealed. The whole process dragged on for 13 months, costing him over $40,000 before the appellate court finally shut it down. His relationship with his ex-wife deteriorated. His kids stopped speaking to him when they found out what he'd tried to do. 3 years after the adoption, I got an email from him. Subject line: I'm sorry. The message was brief. Dave, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. What I did was wrong. I was jealous and greedy, and I let it destroy what little family we had left. I don't expect you to respond. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. I never replied. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. Linda's story didn't end much better. After Marcus, there was another man, a lawyer. That lasted 6 months before he figured out she was more interested in his bank account than in him. Last I heard, she was living with her sister in Phoenix, working as a receptionist at a dental office. Not destitute, but a far cry from what she'd imagined. She tried to reach out once, about 4 years after the divorce. A letter, forwarded through my old lawyer. She said she'd made a mistake. She said she missed me. She said she hoped maybe someday we could talk. I threw the letter away without responding. As for Marcus, his dealerships filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy 20 months after Linda left me, 8 months after she'd already dumped him once his financial problems became obvious. The collapse was spectacular. 3 dealerships gone, creditors circling, the house foreclosed. I saw him once, about 6 years later, at a Costco in Cleveland, buying bulk toilet paper and instant ramen. Our eyes met. He recognized me. I saw something flash across his face. Shame, maybe. Or regret. I looked away and waited for him to leave. There was nothing to say. The years with Bob were the best of my life. But by year 5, his Parkinson's had progressed beyond tremors. He needed help with daily tasks, dressing, shaving, walking. I hired nurses, but I was there too, every day. One morning, I found him frustrated, trying to write in his leather notebook, 30 years of business lessons. His hand shook too much to hold the pen. Tell me what you want to write, I said. I'll write it for you. For 6 months, every evening after dinner, Bob dictated, and I wrote. Lessons about business, life, regret, redemption. When I'm gone, he said one night, keep this going. Write your own lessons. Leave it for someone who needs it like you needed me. I will, Dad. That was the first time I'd called him that outside a legal document or public appearance. Just us in his study, the lake dark beyond the windows. He looked at me with his one good eye. Thank you, son. The next 2 years were hard. Bob's condition worsened. He needed more help. I was there for him, helping him, talking to him, making sure he knew he wasn't alone. You don't have to do this, he said one morning as I helped him into his chair. You could hire more help. I know, I want to. Why? Because you did the same for me, Dad. When I was broken and alone, you helped me. Now it's my turn. He was quiet. You know what I realized? I spent 40 years building a business, making money, accumulating things. None of it mattered. None of it made me happy. But these last 7 years with you, these have been the best years of my life. Not because of the money, because I finally understood what family is supposed to be. Bob died on a Saturday morning in October, exactly 7 years to the day after we'd met in that parking lot. I was with him. He'd been in and out of consciousness for days, the Parkinson's having progressed to the point where his body was simply giving up. That morning, he opened his eyes and looked at me, really looked at me, clear and present in a way he hadn't been for weeks. Dave, I'm here, Dad. Thank you, son, for giving an old man's life meaning again. You gave my life meaning too. He smiled. We saved each other. Yeah, we did. He closed his eyes. His breathing slowed. And then, peacefully, he was gone. I inherited $45 million, but more than that, I inherited his belief that I was worth something. The first year after Bob died was hard. I grieved. I questioned whether I could really run the company without him. But I remembered what he'd taught me. About business, yes, but more about people, about fairness, about integrity. I inherited that $45 million in 2009. The timing was brutal, right after the financial crisis. Commercial real estate was in free fall. But Bob had taught me to see opportunity in chaos. I held what we had, avoided panic selling, and carefully acquired distressed properties from over-leveraged competitors. 5 years later, when I sold the portfolio in 2014, it had grown to $75 million. Not because I was a genius, because Bob had taught me patience and the market rewarded it. I kept the house in Traverse City, kept the boat, kept what mattered. But I didn't need to run the business anymore. I'd proven I could. That was enough. I set up a foundation in Bob's name, $2 million a year, helping people who'd been abandoned or betrayed. People like I'd been. I'm 74 now. I live in the house by the lake Bob left me. I work in the shop he built on the property. Turns out I missed working with my hands. I fix things for neighbors, small engines, lawn mowers, the occasional car. I mentor a young guy named Tommy who reminds me of myself at 32. He's a mechanic, married to a woman who doesn't appreciate him, constantly criticizing, always wanting more. I've been trying to help him see his worth before he wastes another decade like I did. Does it ever get easier? He asked me last week after his wife had texted him during our lunch, complaining about something trivial. It gets different, I said. The question is whether you're willing to accept different. I continue writing in Bob's notebook. My lessons now, mixed with his. Someday, I'll pass it on to Tommy, or someone like him, someone who needs to know that it's never too late. That family isn't about blood, that your value isn't determined by people who can't see it. Last week, I was at the grocery store in town, loading bags into my truck when I noticed a man about 50 sitting in his car 2 spaces over. He was on the phone, crying. The conversation was loud enough that I caught fragments. His wife, divorce, took the kids, I recognized that pain. I waited until he hung up, walked over, knocked on his window. He rolled it down, wiping his eyes. "Yeah? You okay?" He looked at me, this stranger asking an obvious question. "Does it get better?" I thought about Linda, about that parking lot 11 years ago, about Bob, about the 7 years we had together and the 6 years I've had without him, about learning that losing everything sometimes means finding what actually matters. "It gets different," I said, "and different can be better. But you have to be willing to let go of what you thought your life was supposed to be and embrace what it actually is." I don't know how to do that. Neither did I. But someone helped me when I needed it, so now I help others when they need it. I pulled out my card. "Call me if you need anything, legal help, job advice, or just someone to talk to. You deserve better than what you got. Your value isn't determined by someone who can't see it." He stared at the card. "Why would you help me?" "Because I learned something from someone very wise. Money is just a tool. What matters is what you do with it, who you help with it, how you use it to make the world a little bit better than you found it." He nodded slowly, clutching the card. "I don't know if he'll call, but I hope he does." Bob saved me that day in the parking lot, not just financially, but spiritually. He gave me back my dignity, my self-worth, my belief that I mattered. And now I spend every day trying to do the same for others. Because that's what I learned. Real family isn't who you're born to. It's who chooses you when you're at your worst and helps you become your best. It's not about obligation. It's about love. I lost a wife who never truly loved me. I lost a brother who only saw me as competition. But I gained a father who changed my life. And I learned that sometimes the worst betrayal is actually the greatest blessing in disguise, because it clears away what was never real and makes room for what is. My name is David Harrison. I'm 74 years old, and that stranger in the parking lot didn't just become my father. He taught me that family is something you build, not something you're born into. That redemption is possible at any age, that it's never too late to start over. And most importantly, he taught me that sometimes losing everything is the only way to find what really matters.